Well, hello, and welcome to a special edition of Something Positive for Positive People. My name is Courtney Brame, and I am currently on my way to the beach with special guests here we have for our podcast today, Dakota. Say hey, Dakota.
Whee!
Oh, that is not hey.
Oh.
You also got to talk a little bit louder because you're further away from the mic than I am.
Oh, okay.
So,
I feel like I do that easily without trying, but then when you tell me to do it, it's harder.
yeah, that gets a little tricky.
But I could do it. This is problem, but that doesn't feel natural.
It might not feel natural, or you can just lean forward a little bit. It would be good.
Don't hurt my back.
Nah, we got to do all that. All right. So, Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports and educates people living with herpes on how to navigate the stigma. We also teach health professionals how to educate and take sexual histories in a way that is stigma free. So if you're someone who is at an organization, Planned Parenthood, urgent care, or somewhere that would be able to benefit from these services, these types of trainings, please don't hesitate to reach out. Courtney at SPFPP.org. All right, today what we want to talk about is managing rejection. So we've been having a lot of conversations recently about this specifically. And before I get into that, I want to invite you all to the Dating with Herpes and Disclosure Workshop, which will be held on Wednesday, July 17th. It's virtual. It'll start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it'll go until 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll hang out for a few minutes after that. If you're someone who has like a specific question about your experience, because I really want for this to be more of an engaging thing, we're going to have Nikita Fernandez, who is a herpes positive sex therapist, that she spoke at the Herpes Stigma Conference on the sexual health is mental health portion of the conference. So we're inviting her for a podcast episode. I couldn't believe I never like interviewed her, but had her at the conference. But that is someone who will also be there. So we'll start out with just a little bit of a discussion. It'll be a podcast recording for about the first 30 minutes, and then for the rest of the time, what we'll do then is go through and talk about some of the challenges of disclosing herpes status and the best ways to go about doing that. So right now, tickets are on sale for $15, but hurry up and get it because they're going to go up to $25 when we get closer to the event. I strongly encourage you, if you are not a member of Something Positive for Positive People, visit spfpp.org/membership to join today. And for as little as $25 a month, you'll have access to the recordings of these events, and you'll get free virtual access to future events. And you'll be able to see what the perks are on each aspect of the membership. All right, and so getting to what I wanted to talk to everybody about. So if you've noticed, you see the word stigma minimization is more prevalent on the Something Positive for Positive People podcast, the flyers that are coming out. Like, we're really emphasizing that as an action statement. What we want to do is minimize stigma. And Dakota, who also presented at the Herpes Stigma Conference, she delivered the presentation on minimizing stigma in sexuality education. And
For who?
sexuality education.
For who?
Oh, for youth.
Yeah,
my bad. Stigma minimization for youth, working with sexuality educators as well. Now, in that presentation, one of the things that she touched on was, well, it wasn't one thing specifically, but there were a lot of aspects about sexuality education that don't necessarily directly connect with sex or intercourse, which is what most people think of when they hear sex education. I think that sex education to the general public is really intercourse education. And one of the things that Dakota did was bring light to these aspects of it that are not sexual inherently, but if instilled in youth at an early age, when they get to a place of becoming sexually active or when they start having any type of relationship, they are equipped with the communication and relational skills to have these friendships and acquaintances, whatever you want to call them. And some of these things are boundaries, an understanding of consent, recognizing accountability, asking for help when needed, being able to, what we're going to talk about today, say and hear the word no, and be able to respect that no when it's heard, and to know um, to really stand firm behind your no and have it be an unwavering no in as well. Is there something that I'm missing with that? I know consent, boundaries, rejection handling, seeking support. I feel like there was another thing. What you think?
I don't know, but let's just talk and see
What comes up?
those are a lot of things, so we'll touch upon all those things, and then if there's something else that comes, we'll let's just go with the flow.
Right.
Let's just see where the conversation takes us.
All right. So the reason that I brought Dakota on for this podcast episode is because we've been talking a lot actually, lately about rejection, and we have different experiences with it. I think that the way that you talk about boundaries really it makes me think about boundaries in relation to rejection. So often I hear from people, I mean, through this podcast, who often reject themselves. And when I hear you talk about boundaries, which is a very fairly new word to me, considering it was like at age 32, I would say, when I started to hear this word. And I wanna start there. So let's just start there with uh, what are boundaries? I think you like the boundaries queen.
Oh, thank you so much. Do you think so?
I think so.
I try. I would say boundaries are. We talk about standards and expectations a lot, so I would say that boundaries are more of standards that we have based on our values around how we engage. Oh, it's very Jersey of us. You got to pay the toll.
All right, okay.
Yeah. You need change?
Nope, I got it. Girl, keep talking. I got this.
Sorry. I'm easily distracted too. So I would say boundaries are standards you put in place around the values that you have that are responses to how you engage with other people. So it's not really about like controlling other people's actions. It's not about you can do this, you can't do that. It's about if people do these things, I love those things because they're in line with my values. If people don't do these things or they do these things in certain ways, I don't engage with that behavior. And if I do engage, this is the line in which I engage with. That's what I would say boundaries are. That's like a loaded answer.
That was, I mean, yeah, and put simple. So when I hear boundaries, I always thought like saying no, and people say no to themselves a lot more than they want to give themselves credit for. Sorry, I had to like turn away and pay the toll because we're going to the beach. So I missed a lot of what you just said. I ain't even gonna lie.
Wow.
I know. I told you to keep going. I didn't want to pause. I got the GPS up. We're driving, and I got the.
You know you can clip it and edit it.
Well, thank you for telling me that. So I just shifted to a new podcast hosting platform. We can talk about that later. This ain't got nothing to do with that. But that was a process, y'all. Oh my God, that was a process.
Okay, so can I reiterate what I said?
You can, please.
For you. So I was pretty much saying that boundaries are about how you respond to the actions of others that are based in your values.
Okay. So what's the inverse of that?
What do you mean?
So how you respond to the actions of others, but what about like responding to others' actions? Like it sounds like it kind of sounds
That's
like
what I'm saying.
Okay, so boundaries are how
boundaries
you
are not
respond.
they're not rules for how other people act. It's how the lines that you draw in terms of your engagement based on other people's actions.
Okay, so when I think of boundaries, I think I'm not going to allow blank. Like, don't disrespect me. That's a boundary. Or is that a rule?
It's good.
Go on.
So that's why I talk about values, right? Because ideally when you talk about boundaries, it's not a don't do this, it's a do this, and then this is what it means to me. So if I have a boundary of being respected in my relationship, what does that actually look like, right? There are different types of ways to show respect or be disrespectful. So like if we're getting into something and you call me out of my name, I'm not engaging with you past that point. But there's certain, let's say like if we're out in public and, you know, I feel dismissed by you publicly and that felt disrespectful, that's something that I'm willing to engage and have a conversation around. But if you were to call me out my name, I'm not engaging.
Okay, I think I understand that. So I want to like keep it on course because that seems like a whole different episode to talk more about boundaries. But I think there's a connection between rejection, boundaries, and then you brought up values as well. So let's try and stay on rejection then, and then if we have to do any more elaboration, we can. So in the world of something positive for positive people, where I'm regularly talking to people about not just herpes, but their relationships and social lives around their perception of what it means to have herpes, which is by default what stigma does to people. So I'm speaking to people who have this belief that they are less deserving or that they need to explain themselves. And I often find myself having a lot of conversations that revolve around looking at people's relationship to rejection. And rejection is not exclusively being told no because you have herpes. I think that there are ways to mitigate rejection, first off, by going into those things about boundaries and values, because we may overlook those more important things because of what stigma causes us to focus on, which is the fear of being rejected. So when we look at rejection, let's define rejection and then work from there. Do you have like a working definition of rejection, or should we look something up real quick and then just read that?
I'll look it up, but just like what comes to mind is like
To me, it just feels like not getting the outcome that
you want. Yeah, like being declined.
Yeah.
Being declined, or like I was gonna use the word in the definition, but
being rejected is rejection is the act of being rejected. That's that first definition that always comes up when you Google it, right?
Yeah. But I was also thinking that like not getting the reaction that you want or the outcome that you want. Okay, so rejection is defined as dismissing or refusing of a proposal, idea, the spurning of a person's affection.
Oh.
What is spurning?
Yeah, now we got to look that up.
Spurning means to reject with disdain or contempt.
Ooh.
So that's a strong word. So if you reject with disdain or contempt of someone's affection, that's also like
I think that's what people are scared of. Like that's what people fear. They fear it's not being told no. I think it's more so how you're being told no.
Right.
If you tell someone, hey, I have herpes, I want to sleep with you, and that person's like, oh, God, no. That's what what was the S word?
Spurn.
Spurn?
Spurn.
I have never heard that word before.
Me neither.
All right, cool. So that's really what we're afraid of. We're afraid of being spurned, like getting spurned. Can we say it like that?
Getting spurned.
We don't want to get spurned, right? So how do we mitigate that? First off, I think we have to really look at our relationship to being spurned, right? We fear being spurned, but how do you spell that?
S-P-U-R-N. Spurn.
Wow. Okay, S-P-U-R-N. When I say it, I'm thinking sperm with an N.
No, spurn.
We fear that, like,
you'll be rejected with disdain, disgust.
Yeah. And I want to challenge people, like, when is the last time, first off, you rejected somebody with disdain or disgust? And ask, does that fit the bill? Is that reaction, was that reaction worth it? And then ask yourself the last time you might have felt that way. So to do this exercise for myself, and then I'm gonna have you do it. So start thinking about this, right? I want to hear the last time that you might have spurned someone. So I think that I felt spurned very recently. So throughout my Something Positive for Positive People work, I've been speaking at or presenting in or educating in, quote, sex positive spaces. And in these sex positive spaces, right, there's initial enthusiasm and gratitude for the work that I do, for being the only person who is educating, at least in the way that I am. I don't want to take credit for being the only person who's talking about herpes, but for being willing to step into these sex positive spaces. There's been different organizations that are like small communities that have asked me to come in, present on something. And this is quite a different type of spurn or rejection, I would say, because I can count 7 specific times where I felt more intensity of a rejection for seeming like an afterthought. And most recently, when this has happened, is I was supposed to have the July 17th event that's coming up for the Dating with Herpes and like disclosure workshop that's coming up. This was supposed to be in collaboration with an organization. I won't name the organization because there's no ties to it, but it was supposed to be with an organization. And as we were getting closer to it, I was making the posts. I was tagging them. We got the copy. We did the initial stuff well in advance, and now we're a little bit more than a week out. And so I reached out to them on Monday. Today's Thursday. I'm recording this, and then we're going to upload it. I reached out to them, and I was like, hey, I see that I have X number of registrations on my end because it was going to be in person. So I was like, hey, if people are all registering online, then we may as well just make this an online event. So they told me that they didn't have any registrations on their end, which they shouldn't because I created the link. I would have known if that's how people were there, right? But they said that it didn't make it for the newsletter that went out the day previously, which was a little bit annoying to me that it didn't go out. So I, was like, okay, let me do some research real quick because we're at 10 days out. Like, we're 10 days to the event is supposed to start. So I go to social media, I go to their page, and I see that any other event that they've had, they were at least posting about it a month out. A month to 2 weeks out, they're promoting the event. And I also look at the names of the event. It's involving rope, it's involving opening up your relationship, navigating non-monogamy, things about kink, and all the fun stuff, right? So my internal, I have my own internalized versions of stigma that show up to me. And what that was like, damn, I guess I wasn't fun enough or cool enough to be promoted, as openly as these other things are to this community. And so I did internalize that, but I didn't want to respond to these people as if that were the case because, like I said, it's happened a number of times where I just have felt like an afterthought for the work that I do. Like, it's people want me to come in and do this thing, but it also seems more like they want me to bring my audience into their space and then like give them some of the benefits, the money, the faces, the head count to their space that I otherwise would have been able to just serve on my own, which doesn't feel fair because if you listen to this podcast, you probably already have an understanding of the things that I'm going to talk about. So I finished looking at the post and I see, all the fun stuff got promoted, but I didn't get promoted. And like now that I'm reaching out and asking about the event, like this is where we are with it. And I wonder if anybody was going to even tell me, like, hey, we don't have any registrations on our end. Oh, we didn't send it out. We didn't promote it, basically. So I kindly responded. I responded to the email. I was like, hey, it doesn't really feel good to have this event still when there's been no promotion on you guys' end, and we're about a week out from having the event. Like, the next time that it's able to make it into a newsletter, like, let's revisit this. Let's have a phone call so we can set the expectations and then, like, adhere to what those expectations are. But that felt very rejecting to me because it's happened several times. Like, I have supporting evidence that this has happened, which is, I think, a big difference between the way that people think they're going to experience rejection because they don't have evidence of it outwardly. So for me, like, the 7 total times I have, this happened before. This happened before. Maybe this isn't like that. So I'm able to look at it in that way and go, this feels like a rejection. Like, and the reason that I use the word spurn here is because it's my feeling of people being disgusted with me. They're not saying, ew, you want to talk about herpes to our people who are having sex with each other and going to these play parties and stuff. That's not what it was. The disgust is internal and coming from within me because I'm like, damn, is this just not cool enough for you? Is this not fun enough for you? Like, are you grossed out for having to post this? So that's the last time I felt rejected. And it wasn't an overt, no, you can't do this. It was more of like a,
Dismissal.
A dismissal, yeah. It felt like being an afterthought. Being an afterthought feels like rejection to me, and maybe this is like something to speak to about boundaries. But before I can stop there and just share that that was my experience, and that's what I chose to do with it. I'm just not going to have this event. I'm going to do it on my own on July 17th, shameless plug. But what is a recent experience that you had with experiencing spurn or being rejected?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I am struggling to think of a time recently that I have felt rejected.
Talk to me more.
I can more easily access memories, and I got a good memory, but I can more easily access memories of rejecting others than memories of me feeling rejected.
Okay. So when you look at those moments of you rejecting people, what are those moments?
What do you mean? Like, what is happening? Why am I doing that?
No. I'm saying like you have an example of rejecting people, but you don't have any examples of being rejected.
Recently, I can't. Like, I'm trying to think of like recently when I have felt rejected. And
So what about all those times where you like you ask a question and then you respond, okay, I guess I could just go fuck myself then. I've heard that like 7 times over the last 2 weeks.
wow, well, first of all, those are jokes. Like, I'll ask a question, and if the person doesn't answer within 2 seconds, I'll like make a joke and be like, okay, I'll just go fuck myself.
Does that not feel like rejection to you?
Well, considering the time frame, if it actually has been 2 seconds, like, no. But if the person like didn't hear me or they're not paying attention, then yeah, that feels like rejection.
So we found a rejection. So you feel rejected when you don't feel heard.
Yes.
Ooh.
Or like there's something else that's more important.
Oh. So do you have a boundary around that?
I have a boundary around like attention. Like if you're going to give me your attention, then I would like the attention, and if you're not, then tell me that. Like, don't try to divide your attention.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just like not have it than get it and it be half-assed.
So ain't no half stepping with you, huh?
Absolutely not. No.
All right. So that's an example of rejection. And how do you deal with it when you feel that way? What do you do?
I think I respond with humor, right? Because we're talking about, like, I think my humor leans aggressive, but I'll be like, okay, I'll just go fuck myself. Thanks. Good talk. Like the sarcasm. But I think it also, like, lightens the mood.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, I don't know, I think there's moments when I'm like, can I have your attention? Like, I'm trying to talk to you, or I'm trying to share something with you, or I'm trying to connect with you. Like, I'll just, and I might have, like, a little attitude because. So
you'll state your need.
Yes. Like, I do it with my mom and my sister, or a friend. You. I'll be like, I'm trying to talk to you. Can you put this down?
Yeah. And I often experience, like, rejecting whenever I notice that, because you made an ask, which is to not do that. And if I'm like in the middle of a thing and then you like walk in the room and it's not like a request for attention, it's more like demanding it, because you'll ask a question or something that needs more attention than I have. Or like if you call me and I'm like doing a thing and I'm thinking you just got a quick question, because this was something that happened recently, right? I was doing something on my computer and you could tell that I wasn't like paying attention to you when you called.
No, that's not true.
What was it?
I felt like you were paying attention to me until I noticed that you weren't.
So like I'm in the middle of a thing typing or something like that.
I didn't know you were in the middle of a thing.
Right, because I didn't say anything.
No.
So
that's what I'm saying.
And that's where we get into like the assumptions thing too, because if I'm assuming, oh, you're calling me, it's gonna be quick, and then I just keep doing whatever I'm doing. I don't say, like, you would rather me be like, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm doing this thing right now.
Yes.
Than to just like
do the thing.
Not ignore. Like, you want it to be stated.
I appreciate that, because then I think it allows me to like adjust my expectations.
Ooh, adjustment expectations.
So like if I know that you're doing something and you tell me like, hey, I'm doing something right now, but like, can I call you when I'm done? Or, you know, I just like the heads up. I just like to know.
Does that feel like rejection?
No.
Okay.
It feels like consideration.
It feels like I'm rejecting you.
I don't feel that though. I feel like it feels, when you do that thing, like, listen, you have a question or you want to talk, or you're trying, like, you tell me, like, I'm doing a thing right now that has my attention. When I'm done with this thing, we can reconnect. That feels considerate. I don't feel rejected by that.
Okay, this is a really good example then. Thank you. Because it also shows, like, the importance of being able to state a need. And what I think rejection is isn't what you think rejection is, right? Because I feel like I'm rejecting you by saying not right now, or hey, I'm actually doing something now. Because what I hear in that is, and this is my own internalized thing, this thing is more important than you right now. Can I make you important later when this thing becomes less important? That's what that sounds like.
I don't hear that, but there's also times that I think I challenge the importance of things. So depending on what it is, I'll be like, do you have to do this thing right now?
Right.
And there are times when you're like, yes, I really do, and that's because there's a sense of urgency, there's deadlines, or your attention is just, because I understand being in a zone. Like, I get into a zone when I'm doing certain things. And then there's other times when you're like, nah, you're right. Like, this can wait.
Yeah.
So I think asking questions is really important. Like, I made an assumption that day that I called you that, like, when I called you, you were not doing what you were doing on the computer. You're assuming whatever I'm calling about is going to be short and brief, so you can, like, multitask in between that.
Yeah, you
But
hate
there were-
multitask. You hate
Do
hate
I?
that thing. You hate if I'm doing other things and you want to engage with me.
But I'm also learning to name, because I do it sometimes, but I don't do it all the time.
Right.
Like, there will be times when I'm like, I'm trying to connect, or I want to talk to you, or I'm asking you this thing, or I want affection or attention. And then, like, that day, I was making an attempt to, like, reconnect, but I didn't explicitly say that. Like, I was in my field, so I felt like my actions were expressing that, but I didn't explicitly say that. So it was fair that you didn't know that, because even based on my actions, it wasn't clear that that's what I was trying to do.
Got it. Yeah. And, you know, this is different in relationships compared to dating, because, like, you have to get to this point. You don't just arrive, you know, with knowing what the other person means when they say something, or knowing that the other person's interpreting it properly or the way that you intend for it. Because,
but even in dating, I feel like people will take the way it appears and they won't probe to ask a question to understand. Like, I can think of an example early on where you thought I was saying one thing and I was really saying another thing, and you were upset. Like, I think that was, like, you named, like, the first time, like, you felt, like, mad during an interaction that we had. And then by asking questions, like, we talked about it, and I was able to clarify in those early days what I meant, and you were like, whew, okay, we're good.
Got it.
But, like, that's the practice in dating that I feel like people don't do that will help you in a relationship as well.
So let's talk about unhealthy responses to rejection, especially in dating, right? So I'm thinking, you know, if early on I didn't ask questions and I heard what I heard and just ran with that and was like, oh, I guess I'll go fuck myself then, right?
Is that my line now?
That's your line. That's you. Had I heard that early on, then this wouldn't be what it is, because that misfire of communication and the accessibility of the next potential relationship, these are all things so readily available, and I think that people are so unwilling to address, lean into, explore what really is underneath the rejection, that it's easier to just go into something else, right? Like, I don't want to deal with the feelings that I'm having around this. I don't want to talk to you about, you know, my feelings, or I don't want to tell you, a stranger, that you got under my skin, or that's not cool, that's not masculine. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not even masculine. I did that shit.
Huh?
I did that.
Which, to me? You did it to me?
Yeah, I did.
But we'll talk about what you mean later because I don't know what you're talking about. But for the example that you just used, it was like there was a miscommunication, misunderstanding that made me feel rejected. And if my response to rejection were unhealthy and if it were avoidant, then we might not have continued engaging. And I wonder how often people might be missing out on something that is really good for them or healthy for them because they're so unwilling to, one, be rejected, or B, or two, not be, engage with said rejection.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of like unspoken rules for dating, right? Like you don't express a certain amount of emotion within a certain amount of time. You can't be too invested. You can't let the person know that they did something so early on that made you upset because then you're crazy. Like, I feel like there's a lot of unspoken rules, and I feel like if people just communicated more clearly and upfront, a lot of that mystery in those games wouldn't have space to even like operate.
Yeah. Do I need you to look and see what I do. I'm lost. Like, do I get out of these lanes?
I would, because they're easy pass only.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, anyways, people who are possibly missing out on like very. Oh, okay. Hold on. I can't.
You're talking about negative reactions to rejection.
I need you to let me over. I need you to let me over. I really need you to let me over.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Why are you driving so slow?
It's okay.
Jesus.
It's okay.
All right, we good now. Wait, don't say full service. Oh.
It's okay. You're in the right place.
All right. Sorry, y'all. I ain't mean to make y'all hear me talk about driving. I know how whacked that.
Either one of these lanes is fine.
Yeah.
But negative reactions to rejection.
Thank you so much.
I got you.
Avoidance,
but there's also aggression. There's passive aggressive. There's passive.
Show me a passive rejection, because I think I know what you mean, but maybe you might mean something else.
You mean passive rejection or a passive response?
Like a passive response to rejection.
Okay, so I think about, like, I hear about this shit all the time. A guy and a woman are texting, and the guy doesn't text back for 3 days. And the girl's upset about it, and then when he actually reaches out, she's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, it's all good. Like, I know we're both busy. Everything's fine. Like, bitch, you're mad.
Yeah.
You're upset that you didn't hear from him for 3 days, and now he's just popping up. That's a passive response. Like, you're acting cool, like everything's fine, when in reality, everything is not fine, and, you're not even really stating how you feel because those unspoken rules. You don't want to seem crazy. You don't want to seem too invested. You don't want to seem thirsty. You want to be like, chill, I'm cool, it's fine. In reality, you're like, it's been 72 hours.
And that sounds to me, too, like almost like a self-rejection in a way, right? Like, when you're that passive and I don't want to say unwilling. It's not unwilling. If you are... Yeah, maybe unwilling to address it or unwilling to actually state how that made you feel or to engage and set a boundary, like that feels like another form of rejection, right? Like someone not being responsive and then popping back up out of the blue, or maybe they're not responding in a timely manner. And in this case,
what is a timely manner? Because
that's your boundary.
There are some people that will say, we don't know each other, we're just starting to talk. So if we talk once or twice a week, that's fine. For other people, waiting 3 days to hear from somebody is too long. So it's like, also, where's the self-accountability and where do you check yourself? Or like, because a lot of people also experience relationship anxiety. So it's like at the beginning, you don't hear from this person, you like them, you want that engagement, you want to talk to them all the time, and they're maybe not texting you all day, so you're like, do they really like me? Are they interested? Da-da-da. So you also have to check yourself. And is it just your brain telling you, like, all of these things, like you're rejecting yourself before you can be rejected, or is this person really playing games and like that's a boundary, like you don't need to be fucking with that?
Yeah, this is so like the parallels of how you're speaking about this in dating. These are things that a lot of people that I talk to who have herpes don't even allow themselves to get to a point of, because they are so afraid of being rejected for their herpes diagnosis, spurned that in that intense of a way. I think people believe like if you tell someone that you have herpes, they're gonna throw a drink in your face. Ew, get away from me, you creep! Like that's not actually how this works. And in fact, I don't know anyone who's had that response to someone letting them know like, hey, I want to have a sexual health related conversation with you, blah 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 blah, and then you get to the point of disclosing that status, right? And one thing to understand is that everybody has a herpes status. Everybody has an HSD or STI status, and for whatever reason, the burden of responsibility only falls on those of us who know that ours is positive to initiate and be willing to have that conversation. And I really think that it's time that we change that, which I'm trying to do on July 17th at 7:30 p.m. from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time virtually. Go to spfpp.org/events in order to register for that. If you are a member and you want to attend, just let me know so that I can be sure to add you to the invitation link. I'm going to send the link out the day before. It'll be within not the day before because I want it at the top of people's inbox. It'll be about an hour before. So you put it in your calendar, you register, and then once you register, you'll get the link an hour before. But this is also not exclusively for people who have herpes. It would be great for people who don't have it to hear this, but that'll be generally what the conversation is about, is initiating and having a discussion about not just like our sexual health status, but also intentions, right? Like, what are our intentions with one another? What do we want from each other in said relationship? And how do we work towards that? These are the kinds of things that are important that I think people, when they start this process of just self-rejecting, they deprive themselves of in relationships, and they think, oh, this person's going to reject me because I have herpes. And I mean, I hate to be the person to say it, but sometimes that other person just might not be all that attracted to you. And you might be so caught up in your status that you're not even really all that attracted to them. But if we lock in so intensely to not, making this parallel between herpes and just like the fear of rejection for herpes, and compare this to the fear of rejection in general, or dealing with rejection at all, we see that the common ground there is that like we can deprive ourselves from the skills, the lessons necessary for us to begin to get the thing that we want, or to identify the kind of person that we want to be with, or work our way into those kinds of relationships in dating and relationships, or whatever the form of the relationship may be. You pulled your phone out and you got completely disconnected and you wasn't paying attention to be able to jump in.
I'm listening. You just went on promoting your event. So what do you want me to say? I was listening to you.
Why you ain't co-signed? Be like, yeah, that's right, y'all. July 17th.
I laughed. I said, yeah. I'm sorry.
You.
Did you feel rejected because I pulled on my phone?
I did.
I apologize.
See, thank you. I appreciate that.
I got you.
See, that was so easy.
I'll ensure that I am fully present for the remainder of this episode.
Well, technically, I'm driving and recording a podcast, and there's the need for my attention. So, like, I'm multitasking.
Okay, so, but I'm not boo-hoo crying about it. You're driving.
Yeah, but we just talked about, like, me doing multiple things and then you being like, nope, I don't like that.
Well, it's not the end of the world. Like,
is okay,
I have some discernment. Yeah, like, I'm not completely unhinged all the time.
Not all the time. Right?
There are times when I am, but I can name it.
Yeah. So the whole piece about rejection, I'm appreciative of you for being here in this conversation, because, like, as I heard you talk about boundaries, you also mentioned values, and one of the things that, like I told you that I really respect about you is your intentionality. And I think that these are all, of course, these are all very important aspects of navigating rejection that I think can be put together in the form of some sort of workshop or something, right?
Can I tell you something? Yes.
Yeah. What?
Sorry.
Yes,
speaking of adding to the conversation, I just thought of something.
Ooh, what you got?
So I've noticed, it's something I've thought about, but oftentimes in my life when it comes to not just dating or relationships, but I would not put myself in positions to be rejected.
Say more.
I typically would not make the first move, express interest first, I wouldn't apply for a position that I felt there was a possibility of me not getting. I wouldn't put myself in positions where I anticipated rejection. Whether that was like people, places, things.
So we're talking about jobs. You're talking about like even like if there's a person that you like, you wouldn't shoot your shot.
I wouldn't shoot my shot unless
sure.
I knew for a fact it would be received.
Wow. So we're very similar in that because I remember like my like early on in my like dating life, it would be I wouldn't say anything or make any move until someone let me know. Like I wouldn't have liked a person until I knew that they liked me, right? Like oh that person's cute, but then somebody like hey so and so said they thought you were cute, and I'd be like oh all right, and then like talk to them or engage like with the confidence of that knowingness. And if I didn't know, I would often just reject myself and make up excuses. And rejecting yourself can look like making up excuses of, oh, why this person wouldn't like me. And we'll start to, in our head, like, start to point out our own flaws, insecurities. And for people with herpes, it's typically I have herpes. There's no way that that person's going to want to be with me. No way, no how. But the reality is there's probably so many other things that you are of value for and that make you attractive to the other person, that makes you compatible to the other person, but you yourself are so locked into, oh my God, this diagnosis that you're unable to see the possibility of that for yourself. So thank you for sharing that, like the self-rejection thing. You said interesting, go.
That was it.
Oh, all right. So that being said, workshop idea?
Rejection handling?
Rejection handling or management?
I don't know. What sounds better?
What sounds like more marketable? Rejection handling 101.
Yeah, I feel like that sounds more like accessible. Like, how do you handle rejection?
Ooh, okay. All right, so y'all be on the lookout for that because we're gonna make it a thing. We'll make it happen. This month, actually, we can do that in 2 weeks. Can we put this together in 2 weeks?
Yes.
We'll put it together in 2 weeks. What day are we thinking? What's July? Like my calendar is clear for July 25th.
Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Bet. So Thursday, July 25th. There will be a link added at some point to this podcast description where you will be able to register for said event. We're going to work out the details, but right now it's just a matter of getting it out there, making sure that y'all know that this exists and we can do it, and we're going to have a good time. All right? So, yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about. If you have any feedback at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can DM me on Instagram at Courtney Brain. You can also DM Dakota at
Get Real with Dakota.
Just Get Real with Dakota, like no spaces or anything?
No.
Perfect. You also got a website too,
I
don't
do.
you? What is it?
I do. GetRealWithDakota.com.
And what can people expect when they go to that website?
You can find my offers, coaching. I do mastermind calls, so if you want to just like bitch and complain about a problem for 90 minutes and I give you everything I got in terms of a solution, tips, tricks, worksheets, resources, that's an option. I'm going to be uploading more on-demand workshops, live events coming up. You can access my podcast there, my blog. I have a freebie out right now called What the Fuck Do You Value? And it is the most popular activity that I do with my clients to help them set boundaries that feel good and work through the basis of getting to know their values. So if you struggle with rejection, it's also something that's helpful. Yeah, that's really it.
I don't think I asked you to introduce yourself. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dakota. I'm a self-love relationship coach and sexuality educator, and I help people manage relationship anxiety, set boundaries that feel good in work, and enhance pleasure in all areas of their life through the help of tough love so you can manifest and maintain your #relationship goals.
There we go. All right, y'all. So that concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. If you want to join us on next Wednesday, Wednesday coming up, July 17th, for the dating and disclosure workshop, please go to spfpp.org/events. The Safe Sex Expo, September 29th. Dakota will also be presenting there. So this will be in New York City. Right now, early bird tickets are $25 until August 1st, and then they go up to $40. So if you are in New York City or the area and you want to attend in person, we've got a day of 4 workshops. We're going to have vendors. We're working on getting some food and other types of entertainment there so that people can just have a good time. We want to be able to come, and the idea is to be able to kind of have like an introductory level into expanding what stepping, I don't want to say into sex positivity, but more into pleasure positivity, if you will. So if you're somebody who's like in a relationship or you're dating and maybe you want to learn to ask for a little bit more or something a little bit different, or you want to just spice up things and you know that you're more vanilla, this is a really good place to come and learn like little things like about spanking, exploring sensory play, things that you can do, early on in dating and surprise a partner with, or if you're in a relationship and you're wanting to spice things up, you can also do that. But it's called the Safe Sex Expo, so we're going to also be exploring the spectrum of safety and pleasure so that you can have fun and you can also be safe, not just physically, but also emotionally as well. All right, that concludes, I think I said that part already. Yeah, so please rate the podcast. We're on Spotify now. Well, we always have been, but I had to do some different things with the podcast. So, yeah, that's been an adventure. I'll talk about that another time, but it's still available. If you follow me on Instagram at Courtney Brame, all one word, then you'll know what I'm talking about because I've been complaining about it for the last week. But we got it now. So it's just like little tedious things happening for me to adjust and fix it. And that's it, y'all. Till next time, stay pleasure positive.